Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to today's episodes of the Light Leaders Ascension School. I'm Athina Bailey, your host, and today we are talking about what it's actually like to be a clairvoyant, to be a channel, and to see ghosts and other things, what that is actually like. This is a question I get asked a lot, and whilst it's quite normal for me, and it's been normal for me for a long amount of time, I know it's not normal for everybody. And people ask, like, how much does it actually get in the way of a life? You know, am I just walking around and then, oh, I see something, hello, how's it going? Or do I turn it off and on? Is that even possible? So that's what I'm getting into today and sharing with you what that's actually like. I'm also going to be sharing with you, seeing things that are not of the light. And I want to do a bit of a disclaimer here. I am not one of those channelers, psychics, healers, whatever you want to call me, that is like, ooh, love and light, just pretend nothing else exists, okay? Because I know that right now on Earth, we are shifting into a fifth dimensional state. Yes, the reality is the majority of us are not in a fifth dimensional state, right? We wouldn't be here, which means we are still partly experiencing a third and fourth dimensional state, which means there is polarity. Right now, if you are experiencing lack of any kind, if you are experiencing any kind of polarity of, I'm not good enough, I don't have what I want, any sadness, anything in your life is not 100% fully soul aligned, right? That's still part of the 3D, 4D, and that's normal. That's part of why we're here, right? So as long as we're still connected to these realms, we're going to be connected into what these realms are, right? So I take the approach of, it's good to be informed. It's good to know what you're doing. It's important to know how to protect yourself and how to navigate certain scenarios, not just focus on love and light and the rest doesn't exist, right? That's not how I do it. Part of the reason is as well, I worked as a healer for a very long time and I had people come to me with stuff, and sometimes the stuff was attachments and entities. And imagine if I just went, no, just pretend it doesn't exist. And they're like, well, it's literally keeping me up at night. And I'm like, no, just love and light. It doesn't exist, right? I know, because I went through that when I was a teenager as well myself. And it was a deep spiritual training for me, right? My guides and my soul, making sure that I had that big shift around that. But I couldn't just pretend it doesn't exist. It doesn't serve me to say that, and it doesn't serve the people who are having a very real lived experience of it. So the way I think about this, it's right now we're human, right? We're having a human experience. Part of that human experience is it's not always a fifth dimensional experience. Maybe a lot of the time it is, but there are times when it's not, which means sometimes you will get sick, right? You're not going to feel amazing all of the time. Sometimes you might get food poisoning, you might catch a cold, you might get the flu. It happens, right? And when that happens, you don't go, oh no, I'm too spiritual for this, I'm too high dimensional for this. No, you're like, okay, I need to rest, something's going on in my body, right? It's part of being human. So is this. So that's how I see it, right? I really don't get sick. Often I have a very good immune system, but occasionally I do, right? Occasionally I might get a cold, right? Occasionally I get an upset stomach. Occasionally we have to deal with the lower realm stuff. It is part of being human. The same way, occasionally you have to deal with a person who's being a bit shitty. Doesn't mean that they're a shitty human, but they're being a bit shitty. It's not all love and light all the time, right? Sometimes there will be people that are rude or shitty. It's part of being human, and that's how I want you to think about these lower realms. Now, there's a problem when you're experiencing every day, all the time, nonstop, right? That's a problem. But if you are experiencing it, sometimes occasionally something will happen. I don't know anybody, I haven't met anybody who's psychic, in tune, successful, spiritual, hasn't experienced something, because it's part of the initiation, but it's also part of being human. So I'm going to talk about all of that today. And, my intention is not to scare you, but rather to take away some of the, what's that like? And even take away some, to normalize it a little bit of like what life is actually like. And I've had a lot of experiences and I've done a lot of clearings and worked with a lot of people and seen them going through stuff. So I don't have fear around it. I used to have a lot of fear around it when I was younger. So I want to talk about that and how when, I'm working on someone and I see something, how to how does that feel for me? What do I do? So first I want to start with when I was a child and I was growing up, I did have a lot of visitations. I did see a lot of things. It was suppressed into my subconscious and I didn't know it until I was much older, right? So I was getting visitations. These weren't negative visitations, but at the time, my young mind, when I was 5, 6 years old, couldn't deal with it, right? It was scary and it was overwhelming. So it just suppressed it, went into my subconscious. I didn't consciously remember it. And part of that was also from the beings that were supporting me and were helping me receive these upgrades, right? Because they were supporting me be in this human body and provide me with the energetic support that I needed. But it created this subconscious fear. And so I developed a severe fear of the dark. Like I'm talking really, really severe. Like I had to sleep with the light on probably till I was about 19. Like it was bad, just really severe. And it was from these visitations. Even though I didn't know, subconsciously there was a fear. And it was until I was older and I went back and I saw it and I healed it and I shifted it, that fear disappeared and I was okay. So I had that happen and I was already, as you know, I was very psychic growing up. I had a lot of experience, but it all kind of peaked at around age 15, 16. And that's when I went full into my dark night of the soul, the spiritual awakening, all of that stuff. And I began to see a lot of things. I began to experience a lot of things, good and bad. I began talking to my guides. I began seeing angels. I began having all these beautiful experiences. And on the flip side, I also began to I had the experience of my first entity ever, right? And if you've ever experienced having an entity or an attachment, it's not a fun experience. Out of nowhere, you can be walking along, you can be having a great day and then all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel so shit? Like, I just feel so low. I don't feel like myself. I just feel like you just feel not good, right? And it's almost like instantaneous when it happens, right? So that age, I started to have it, but I didn't know what to do with it at that age. I wasn't taught, I didn't know how to do energy work, but I also had this awareness, like I could literally feel it, sometimes see it. There was something there and it was like bothering me. And this is very normal when people go through spiritual awakenings because it's like this bright light goes on and I'm like, oh, angels, spirit guides, yes, like coming into my soul purpose. There are certain beings who don't like that, right? So it's quite common. I've seen it a lot with spiritual awakenings, but I didn't know what to deal with. And in that age, I was like, I need help. I need to figure it out. And I was trying so hard. When I was a kid, I didn't have money. I didn't have resources. So I had the internet. So I was researching, trying to find what I could to learn how to deal with this situation. And it was very scary. It was very overwhelming. I didn't sleep properly for many months. And I already had a fear of the dark and it was exacerbated. And what happened at that time, which I'm so grateful for, is I began doing what I call the pillar of light, right? Which I also have in some of the other episodes, how I actually do that. But I began doing it. So I began calling in every single day my spiritual team, guides, archangels, Michael, Raphael, began calling them in. I also began working with the Violet Flame, which I also have episodes on, and I began doing the Pillar of Light. And I would do this every single day, multiple times a day. And because I had trouble sleeping, I would be doing it for hours before I fell asleep. So there was a period of probably about 3 months where my vibration was raising by this because of the work that I was doing, right? And ultimately, that's what had the biggest shift for me, is I raised my vibration so high that I was calling in these spirit guides, angels, ancestors to clear me, to disconnect. And it did shift. It did take a little bit of time, and it was a training, right? I actually had to go through that experience. It was very important. My soul chose that, and I'm very grateful for the experience because it taught me a lot. And it was because of that, from that age, that I have been doing those processes every single day for years, right? From the age of 16. Think about how that would benefit me as a person to be working with my vibration in that way for so many years, right? So that was where it kind of started. And after that point, I was, I learned Reiki. I started going deeper into energy work. I was working with my chakras, and my vibration was raising a lot, and my psychic gifts were activating even more. And it was at this stage that I started to have some really awesome visitations, right? Like I'm talking meeting my galactic family, them waking me up in the middle of the night and talking with me, seeing different beings. And like I had already been channeling since I was 16, but it got more intense, right? My clairvoyance really came on quite strongly, and I was doing healing sessions because that was my first thing that I did training, and then I became a healer. And I would have clients come in and I'd see their guides, and I'd have conversations with their guides about what they needed. I'd see those guides, receive their names, have those conversations with them, and help whoever I was working with, healing whatever they were going through, right? And that was, and I still do that today. And it's really beautiful, that experience, being able to do that, to share that, to offer people that. It's really beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that. And I don't feel like that is just like, ooh, I'm special in any way. We all have that capability. Just a lot of people don't know how to access it, how to activate it, how to open it up, right? Which is where I can help you. And I do have courses, teachings, free courses as well to help you do that. So do make sure you check out the link in the information box of this for that. So I had those experiences, and it was around that time as well that, again, because you're having healing sessions, like people are coming for healing. Usually they have issues and stuff. We're human. They need help with something, which means sometimes you're going to have to deal with stuff that's a little bit darker, right? And so I also had training around that. And I did a lot of energy medicine programs and courses, and a lot of them taught how to deal with it. And then I would also be working with my spirit guides and learning how to navigate that. One of the things that I learned is we can put up a bit of a filter on our third eye, right? Which means that we don't necessarily have to see the lower vibrational stuff the same way we are seeing the higher vibrational stuff, which is really neat because seeing things can often be quite confronting, right? Like maybe seeing something is very different from sensing it. So right now, most of the time, I will sense things, right? If I'm like, oh, there's an energy that's funky in here, or something's come in, or like I see a client, I'm like, there's something funky there, I will sense it and I'll feel it. I'll check with their guides, I'll check with spirit, go, yep, and then I'll do a clearing. I don't have to see it, right? And look, when someone has an entity, like if you're energetically attuned at all, it's so obvious. I literally look at someone's eye and go, yep. And I remember like my husband's sister a while back, she came to visit us, and I looked at her and straight away I was like, oh, she's got an entity. Like I could see it. And I didn't say anything because we weren't that close, but I told my husband, and he's like, how are you feeling? And she's like, oh, just the last 24 hours, I felt awful. Like, she said, she went out the other night to a bar, which is where a lot of entities are, which is fine. Like you can still go to bars, but it's just, you have a higher protection up there. And she started going on about, and how she just felt so bad. So I said, okay, can I do a clearing for you? I didn't tell her what it was. And I said, can I do a clearing for you? And she said, yeah, sure. Literally a few minutes later, she was like, oh my God, I feel like myself again. And so I had to explain to her what was going on. But for her, it was like night and day. And that's what an entity feels like. Like suddenly you're just like, oh, why do I feel so shit? I don't feel like myself. And then you literally like, oh, I'm back to normal now. Like I feel good. Like it takes days. Like it's literally within 10 minutes, you feel back to yourself, right? And the reality is, entities, they can come in, they can kind of hop into your aura. If your aura is very open and you don't do protection, you don't look after yourself, they can kind of hop in. Sometimes they will wait for you to have an experience where your energy lowers, like maybe you see something traumatic or scary, or your energy drops, you drop into fear or something, and they hop in. And it's really important for you to clear it. And you can clear it yourself, you absolutely can. But the most important thing for you to do is take care of your energy, energetic maintenance, energetic hygiene, protection. All of those things are so important, and doing them on a daily basis, right? It's the same way. You're probably making sure that you're nourishing your body, you're taking your vitamins, you're looking after your body, because you live in a realm where you want your body to be strong. You also need to look after your energy, right? Think of entities as like energetic bacteria, right? You do certain things, you wash your hands because you don't want to have certain bacteria. Entities are the same way, right? And like, don't give away your power to them. I literally want you to think of it like a mosquito or bacteria and be like, oh, that's a bit annoying. Doesn't matter though. Let me clear my energy. Don't go into fear, right? They can't hurt you that bad. They will create a bit of a drain on your energy and it's a bit annoying, but you're the one with the power, right? You bring in the light, you clear the entity, you have the ability, you work with your angels, your spiritual team, and you clear them. So, coming back into that, I have, working with different clients and different scenarios, I have seen things and I have experienced things. And look, honestly, ghosts are kind of interesting. I don't really enjoy doing any kind of mediumship. So it's a realm that I don't connect to a lot, but I do see ghosts sometimes. And I find ghosts interesting because I find them a little bit random sometimes. Like they're just off doing their own thing, just floating around. They don't even really pay attention to you. They're just off somewhere doing their own thing. Remember when my psychic gifts were really coming online, like I literally was woken up because there was a ghost just talking to itself walking past. And I was like, what? And it was just talking about random stuff. And I was like, what? Sometimes having psychic gifts, it feels a bit random. You're like, okay, cool. So ghosts they're not scary. They're not bad. Sometimes they do attach themselves. So when we say attachments, they can attach to humans, especially if you're in an energy that they are used to. So for example, if you are a healer or you're helping people and there's a nurse and she hasn't, who's passed and she hasn't yet crossed over because she doesn't want to, or she's not ready, because we all have like a source connection, right? So we're connected to source. When we pass, we need to move away. And so when they choose not to pass over, they're struggling to get light from somewhere. So if then they see, oh, there's a human with a really juicy energy and they're helping people, that's the energy I like, I'm familiar with, let me go in there. You can create attachments. They're quite rare. Like I've only seen a few in my time, but it can happen. And they don't mean any harm, right? They don't mean anything bad. They're just hovering around trying to figure their own shit out, right? But it can be not beneficial for your energy. So we just release them, shift them, move them. Again, this is stuff that you can prevent just by taking care of your energy. So seeing ghosts is kind of like, and I really close myself off to it. My joy and what I love is seeing guides, right? So when I'm talking to someone, when I'm connecting to someone, I do see their spiritual team. I do see their guides. I do see their angels. Now, most of the time when I'm going day to day, that's, I've got stuff to do. So I'm not like, oh, let me see all the spiritual realms all the time. And I usually have an intention to be have that close. So when we say we turn it on, we turn it off. Yes, I absolutely do that. And also when I channel, I do a lot of safety. I do a lot of discernment because I want to make sure I'm always connecting to beings of only light, not false light, but pure, true light. So I'm also very intentional. I'm not just, there's a being, let me connect to everything and everyone. It's like, it's off. And then when I'm like, okay, I'm going to channel, I very intentionally, carefully connect, right? And make sure that I'm very aware of who I'm talking to. So even though I see the beings, it's something that I'm like, cool, whatever. There are times, and especially with friends, because I do end up channeling a lot for my friends. Literally last week, my friend was going through something and she's very psychic herself, but she was very triggered by a scenario and it was fogging her up, right? So she couldn't get clarity because she was so triggered by the scenario. And literally her guides were waking me up, talking to me and being like, you have to tell her, you have to tell her, you have to tell her. So I was like, oh my God, it was 2 a.m. So I was texting her at 2 a.m. this long essay. And I'm like, your guides need you to know this. And I'm like, hey, they kept me up. Now I'm going to sleep. So it's like that as well. But sometimes with my friends, people I know, I'm close to, their guides will literally be like, hey, Athina, we need you to tell them this. We need you to communicate this. And I'll have to be like, look, I have to say something. I have to interrupt you right now because you guys are saying this. So that does happen as well. But for the most part, I am kind of tuned off unless I specifically tune in. Now, I have gone and been in places, not intentionally, but I have been in places where there have been dark energies around, right? So negative entities, negative beings. And look, when it's there, some of them can be quite intense and it's not a fun experience, right? Because they project thoughts, they project emotions, they project feelings. So usually you're receiving all these like negative images and all these negative emotions, and you're like, oh my God, like it's a bit rough. And so you're trying to clear and raise your energy and like remove them from the space, and you're being bombarded with energy, right? Now I have seen them again. It's not something I particularly like, but I'm not scared of it anymore. When I was a teenager, I absolutely was. Now it's kind of like, okay, cool. A lot of them just show up as like a dark figure, a dark energy. Sometimes there is more to them. And look, it might be objectively a little bit scary, but when you know your power, you know you're of the light, you know they can't really harm you because you are of the light and you have the light. They're like, okay, cool, this is a little bit annoying. It's like having a mozzie in the room that keeps biting you, a mosquito for my non-Australian people, a mosquito in the room, and you're like, okay, gotta get them out of the space because they're a little bit annoying. No, you can't have my blood, bye, right? You're the one with the power, okay? So that's how I want you to think about them, and know that someone that is connected to these realms and living in it and seeing things, I don't have fear around these things, and you don't need to either. When you are fully in the light, when you are connected to the light, when you are connected to the creator, to angels, to your spirit guides, and you feel that divine power you have within you, it's all perfect. Nothing can harm you, and anything that does happen is for your own experience, right? Even that dark experience I had as a teenager, it helped me so much. I'm so grateful for it, right? Because everything's also always happening for you. So beautiful soul. Thank you so much for being here today. Let me know if you have had any experiences like that, or if you have any questions, or you want me to create a video with other resources. Let me know how I can support you. Thank you, beautiful soul.